Came to the libraries.
We need different.
Yes, you do.
Everything was flying through town going south.
I was out of town.
Right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Early afternoon.
Is that
Ambulance,
accident?
I was on Everett Friday. What time was that?
Everybody. Like early afternoon-ish, I think.
Wasn't there an accident
Right, man.
at the Rossi Way?
Yes, there was. Oh, okay.
Hi, Terry.
I still get my alerts, I just wasn't in town.
You didn't hear anything?
Yeah. Where's my bread?
He's, once April comes, we'll 45 days.
Oh, okay.
How
He's
many
getting orders when he can.
loaves is he doing?
Usually 3 a pop, so starts the process Sunday, does it
Nice.
Monday.
Now that I'm on a different day.
Oh, you're in
You can do
Nice.
sourdough because it helps break down the gluten. Usually, like never bread is good for
Yeah.
that.
I'm allowed to eat it once a week.
Okay.
Oh,
That's why I subscribe to this new diet.
laws,
New rules.
new rules.
I think you're there, right?
As I go.
You got a seat over there and a seat over here
Oh,
also.
okay.
Yep.
What?
I'm gonna break down better than that.
So yeah, she did a little bit art and stuff. Oh, that's like a mango. I mean,
Do you have
sourdough.
Well, this guy's kid is my new baker.
Does he make it?
He's an entrepreneur.
The sourdough.
It's probably
Yeah.
something that keep it.
Very good.
Is it?
Seeded and unseeded, is that correct?
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. So I'm advertising for him, I get a copy everywhere, no pun intended.
You get the
Wow.
heel. That's the best part, the heel.
I'm here all night, folks.
Nobody's got her heel yet.
Except with a round loaf, you could have lots of heels, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could.
Right?
Four technically.
No, you could do it, it's small.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, small.
I feel like quarter the round ones. And I just-
I cut it in half, turn it over.
Sorry. That's fine.
Excuse me.
Carl here?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't find Mark's spot.
She comes from far away.
I'm sorry.
And her office is like.
Look, college.
That in terms how big at all?
She just took them, for God's sakes.
Let me see.
Enzymes would be working by now, just so you know.
I'm taking
Thanks
them
for
out.
the news I couldn't use. Chris would lead us in the pledge, how's that?
Sounds
We'll be over there today.
Alright.
Be forever.
I wish you could, because they just added the story. So then it's not for everything.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance, be led by Chris and you.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jen, you're good to go with recording and everything, right? I can even hear it.
Yeah, we're good, and I've had a sound check, and I've been told the sound is good.
Sounds good to me. And welcome to our first regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa, March 10, 2025. We'll start with minutes. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the February 24, 2025 meeting be approved? Trustee Fondainza. Trustee Price-Bush, discussion.
I have a few comments on the minutes. There's what I think is a typo under the LUMAC vote. It does not include Sean Raymond's vote against that payment. It has me listed twice instead. So that needs changing. I do object to the word accused in the minutes that's associated with me. I don't see it used with anyone else. And then another issue I have is, it says in the minutes, Bob Rice stated he changed the date. And we're talking about the LUMAC contract change the date from December 2024 to August 2023. He did not say that he changed the date after it was explained to him the sequence of events, that the board had voted on a contract with a December 2024 date for LUMAC. After this vote, the contract date was changed without board authorization to August 2023. Mr. Wright did not say he had any hand in that sequence of events. And so for the minutes to say that he changed the date is misleading. And then lastly, I submitted a statement about the LUMAC contract, and it is not attached to the minutes. So I'm just wondering why it was not attached to the minutes, if there's a reason for that.
Look at it right now.
It's not on the attached minutes. This has happened multiple times, so, you know. What? I know it's happened multiple times where I attach a statement or others attach a statement and they're not attached. I just want to remind everyone that there is a motion passed by the board that says all written statements read at a board meeting and submitted to the clerk within 10 days of the board meeting will be attached to the minutes as part of the official record of the meeting. So this is not the first time this has happened, and I hope it doesn't happen again. We do need to follow board motions. It is part of the ethics law.
Okay,
And that's all I have.
challenge to the motion's been made, are you
I'll
willing to?
accept the correction of the vote. It does say Ballston place.
And Mary, are you okay with that as the seconder to make that change?
Yes,
Okay, so there's the change accepted, and all in favor?
I'm voting against for the reasons I just stated.
I will ask you for a vote of no at this time. All opposed?
I am opposed. And can the statements be attached in the version that goes on the website, please? That
We're in a voice vote right now. If you want a roll call vote, you could ask for one. We'll let the record reflect Baskin is a no, and abstentions none. Motion is approved 4-1 by the chairs.
and can I get it?
ask why though, if you've had such substantial changes, why didn't you email us ahead of time?
I looked this weekend, so there's no point. It was already
You
published.
couldn't update
It was already
us
published.
Via email
There's no
as a
changing
board?
it. No, I prefer to talk in a public
You
You
forum.
can talk about it in public, but at least let us see it over the weekend that's when you looked at it, so.
We're past minutes at this point.
Yeah, but can we get assurances that this will be that the statement will be on the website with the minutes? As required
The
by
motion
board
is
policy.
completed for minutes at this point. I don't know what you're asking or suggesting. Whatever a policy is.
And can we please implement the policy?
Public comment on agenda items
So
only.
it is an ethics issue to not implement board.
Ben, you're out of order at this point. Thank you.
I'm just asking a simple question to confirm that we're gonna follow policy. I think it's a reasonable request. You're not even answering it, saying yes,
I
will
just said the policy's the policy, so.
and it'll be implemented. I mean, the policy is a policy and it wasn't implemented. Now I'm asking that it is implemented. So thank you for doing that.
Public comment on agenda items only, 3 minutes per speaker, again, on agenda items only. If you're on Zoom, now would be the time to raise your hand. If you would like to speak on agenda items only, please raise your hand if you're in the room and would like to speak, and if you can make your way to the podium. Nobody on Zoom, nobody in the room, it looks like, so we will move on. No consent agenda tonight, but we have motions. Can I get a motion that Eagle Mat Lead Fire Company number 1 be authorized use of the firehouse for a private event on March 15th from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m.?
Make a motion.
Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Brett T. Rogan be appointed as a member of Eagle Mat Lead Fire Company number 1 in the Ballston Spa Fire Department?
I'll second.
Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that DPW be authorized to expend the amount of $1,640 for 2 radio headsets?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Trustee Raymond after Trustee Fandesa's first. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion the library be authorized to expend the amount of $2,828 for monitoring functions?
So Mary.
Trustee Price Bush?
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the library be authorized to expend the amount of $15,478.87 for displays, furniture, and supplies?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Price Bush,
Second.
Trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the DPW be authorized to expend the amount of $11,800 for Lowell Street telemetering equipment and installation?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Raymond, Trustee Fandesa, let me just state that before we had done the Colonial Hills Tower telemetering, we had done a separate motion for installation. We had learned afterward that actually it was included in the price for what we had already approved in the first place. So this is actually still less than what we were assuming we were spending on this thing, and this too is installed. So just to come clean on that. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Scott Kearns, for giving us the right information on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the village be authorized to expend the amount of $3,168 for an upgrade to Microsoft Security on or after June 1st, 2025, and authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork to upgrade the existing services? And note says the current annual cost is $2,712 per year, so it's a slight increase by doing this annual approach.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin and Trustee Fandesa on the second. We'll make it and discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the seasonal hiring of Nicholas Delaney as a DPW intern and part-time employee through the Wishy BOCES program, or BOCES Career and Technical Education Program? He will be awarded classroom time credit and part-time one pay for any hours in excess of the classroom time work. The mayor is authorized to execute any paperwork related to the hire.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye. I would think it's great.
I'm gonna have more on it in a second, actually, here's announcements, so I was holding off till that.
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carries. By all means, if you want to continue, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful idea. It not only gives, young folks real-time experience in actually doing the work. It helps our DPW out, in the summertime when, they're trying to get projects done, they're trying to do things. It's always great to have some extra hands around.
And one of the things I was going to say about this, in addition, is we were trying to do this for the last couple of years for various reasons. It didn't take off. Scott kind of rededicated himself to doing it with Jen and I kind of suggesting it again. And we are also hoping to get a couple, let's say, more summer-based seasonals as well into our system. Milton's been doing this. We know this. They had some people that were interested in maybe continuing with them, but it hasn't always panned out. But at the very least, extra hands during busy periods of time for DPW is always a good thing. We've got some great oversight for them with the folks we have here and the experience they have. So we're going to see how this works, but we think it can be very positive. And like I said, it might even lead to somebody becoming permanent down the line as needs become there. So we'll see where that goes. But thanks for vouching for that. I appreciate that. Here's announcements. We got plenty of them today. Here we go. Get the AI ready, Liz, because we might need to use it for this one. The good news we'll start with. On Friday, we learned from, actually, LaBella kind of clued me in on it, but we confirmed it with the CRTC, that we are being awarded the UPWP grant. If you remember correctly on this one, this was with a goal to justify a drop of the village-wide speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, and evaluating other traffic calming needs on certain streets in coordination with that potential change. This will award us based on the staff time that they added to our original $75,000 estimate. They total out to $100,000, 90% of which would be the grant. So $90,000 of engineering and staff costs they provide, $10,000 would be our match. We'll have a contract and all that stuff coming up, and then they'll work on the procurement of the consultant to do that work. But great news there, and again, it's a study that should come to fruition with some actual movement down the line, which is the hope here, and an evaluation of a lot of streets that might not get the attention they always deserve in certain areas of the village. I think is part of this process as well. So we'll see where this goes. Date range on it, according to the UPWP draft that CRTC puts out, is April 2025 through December 31st, 2026. Now, obviously, I think the goal is to get it done a little faster than that, but can see that they're committed to moving this forward for us with that, so I'll keep you updated. In the same light, we have a meeting coming up Thursday regarding school zone speed ticketing cameras. Been working with Superintendent Duca of the Ballston Spa Central School District and the supervisors of schools, or supervisors of towns where other schools of the Ballston Spa Central School District are located, town of Milton and town of Ballston namely. The idea is to investigate possibly getting the one place where we can have ticketing cameras installed locally, that is in school zones. And we've had a lot of complaints, especially at Malta Avenue Elementary School, on that not being the reality, that people blow through that area and we only have so much in terms of police officer assistance that we can rely on in those situations. So this will allow us, if we move forward with it, to go in that direction. Obviously, we'll have to approve home rule legislation and approve this as a board eventually. Right now, we're just trying to lay out the groundwork for how this works. We'll have basically members from Assemblywoman Walsh's office and Senator Tedisco's office here and law enforcement as well to just go over the nuts and bolts of this. If you remember reading, Albany has that currently, and there's just some Schenectady just missed getting it done last session, legislative session, but Senator Tedisco had helped with getting that legislation ready for them. So basically we have a template ready to go. And the reason why we kind of didn't do this alone is we feel, hey, why not get all the schools involved inside the school district? But that relies on getting 3 sets of home rule in the process. So that's why we want to make sure we take our time to get it done right and have a uniformity in the school system. So that's coming up on Thursday. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Hyde Boulevard and East High Street damage. We have all kind of heard a lot about this, and Sean shaking his head. I was out there in the field on Friday. My family has a history of working with asphalt, blacktopping driveways and whatnot. I've never seen a road where you could actually trampoline on a certain section of the road, basically. It is that soft and that problematic right now on Hyde. We were fortunate enough to get, basically, here's how it works. There are no truck roads, yet we had trucks going down them. The Kiewit trucks are associated with CHPE, which is the underground wire going from Canada down to downtown Manhattan for electricity purposes. And they were using the 2 streets, and we said, okay, it's time to ticket them. They shouldn't be using them. We didn't have any kind of pre-existing agreement of any sort with them to do it. So we did. I think on one day, by noontime, we had given out 4 tickets to the same person at one point. And this caught CHP's attention enough to call out to Supervisor Connolly of the town of Ballston, because with the names of the jurisdictions, and they aren't from here, all these folks, they didn't know who was doing what with this. So he reaches out to me on Wednesday and says, hey, I've been talking to them, trying to convince them that they need to do what they can to pay for the repairs of the streets and maybe even put a community development project together. I've talked with them. We've worked with Evolution since. And the general plan is this. They could make some kind of claim to local delivery rights because those roads are not posted for weight limit purposes. So instead of going down that road, they've been very cooperative in discussion. And we've gotten Evolution give us estimates for Hyde Boulevard alone to put it back to visual repair and enough sub-base to not have this happen again. It's about $114,000 for Hyde Boulevard alone. They have another couple months. We're going to try to get a meeting with them later this week, CHPE, where they would still utilize East High Street as a direct route to where their back road is. They're behind Hyde Boulevard. And they would hopefully repair that at that point when they're done with that road. So costs to be determined to a certain degree. So we're going to keep working toward that. We also have put in, or are working on putting on an insurance claim in case something goes wrong in negotiations with respect to this. So the long story short is, we kind of know what happened here, what went wrong in these 2 streets. We're rectifying at least one of them for the time being to make sure no further damage is done. The other one, because they have a certain level of rights, they're going to work with us on, and we'll also be using insurance tools to the degree necessary. One of the things that we suggested maybe as a community development project would be funding, or putting some funds in for the sidewalk network along High and East High. So the two streets that are most affected by this, at least getting some kind of reward for dealing with it ultimately. But we'll have to see, what the costs look like and what they're willing to do at that point. But they're amenable generally. We'll continue the conversation.
Were any other trucks using those roads?
Not the trucks that you're going to be suggesting.
I didn't suggest that, I'm just wondering. No? Yes?
There are trucks that go down. These are triaxles with full load that are absolutely weight problematic. And if you walked on that road, you would see why the heaviness of those trucks especially is the problem.
Typically, a triaxle weighs anywhere from 30 to 40 tons fully loaded.
Yeah.
So that can have a pretty heavy impact if you don't have a very good compacted subbase.
And that's the approach that they're going to take from Columbia to Chapman, is to box out those most problematic areas where failure has been seen, go 10 inches down on the box out, re-subbase the whole thing up to the point where we mill and fill everything else, so basically build it up to the level again for paving purposes. And hopefully those vulnerable areas that have exposed themselves in this process are going to be rectified in that approach. So that's the approach on that. Friday, while I was meeting with Evolution, our DPW was dealing with a sewer plug that was affecting especially Saratoga Avenue and Union Street. They had several bouts with the sewer issues last week, but Friday was by far the worst situation. It was actually causing backups into basements on Saratoga Ave and around there. Quick work by our staff. I want to thank Berkey, Evolution, the county sewer district, I should say, especially. Bill's actually got out there himself to early in the morning to see what they could do to help us. And others helped us try to unplug the situation. They were able to, but there is concern, and I directed Scott Kearns to try to figure out with LaBella's assistance if we have a collapsed structure possibly that is lending to this somewhere in that sewer system that heads down toward the creek. If you know the elevations over there, basically Saratoga Ave is kind of a hill compared to when you get to the creek area. So we are going to try to, I think, get a TV approach, see if we can find any kind of vulnerabilities in the system down there or why we got this level of plug occurring last week. But again, I think we'd solved it at least initially last Friday weekend, thanks to our DPW for dealing with such a crappy situation. Yes. Zoning next steps. So in some of the discussions over the last week or two, we've been talking with Chris Kuschel to determine where he is with things after some of the back and forth. We learned through this process, because we're usually about a couple of months behind on billing. I asked him, what is your percentage of completion compared to budget on this? And his answer right away last week was 82% at that point in time. Another 6% will be utilized with respect to the public workshop that's coming up in April, I believe, is the goal for that. So we'll be at 88% completed budget-wise. At this point, I've talked to Carla. Feel free to add anything you like on this, but I want to know and want to share with our board where we're going here and ensuring that we're going to get the bulk of zoning approved sooner rather than later. So we've all heard about the 4 contentious issues, quote unquote, but 90% of the zoning code is going to be ready to go, or at least minor modifications until being done. So I kind of looked at the calendar, looked at things and said, Carla, let's go for an approach toward mid-July for an approvable finished bulk of the code. And also then with the 4 other issues, we can use local laws concurrently, begin to develop those and finish those up as well. It might not happen right on top of the code, but we can make sure that they're insertable right thereafter, immediately thereafter in that situation. You've begun your discussion with Chris. Where are we on?
Chris and I emailed back and forth, and we're meeting on Thursday to go over his costs, my costs for going through the code, and just to see where things are. I'm going to ask him to give me a copy of the code because I don't have a copy of it as of yet. And we're basically just going to go through and create a timeline that the whole board can have setting forth all the specifics that has to go through, especially with respect to, you have to go to county planning board, through the local law process, and really just create a timeline, similar to the way we did it for the comprehensive plan, where we had that timeline that we followed that got updated every week. And I believe it was shared with the public. This timeline was obviously be shared with the public. There's nothing wrong with that. But with the goal being that the bulk of the code, like the main code part, would be approved mid-July. But at the same time, work with the board and whoever else to work on those other issues, so that we can really get everything done this summer and have everything really put together this summer. That's the goal, so that it's all finished and completed.
Now, with respect to the concurrent consideration of the other legislative issues, let me bring these things up. It's the Historic District Code. We're working directly with Carla and SHPO/Parks, Francine there, who John put us in touch with, John Cromie, that is, to provide analysis of the potential model law changes that we might consider. With respect to ADUs and short-term rentals, as you may have heard, the state has approved some changes with respect to short-term rentals. As you read further, they've been passing other things with respect to them, and they've really handed the county a large chunk of things with respect to how they get registered, administered, et cetera. So we're reaching out to the county to say, hey, what are you doing, so that we understand what we need to do or not do, depending on what we want to do with respect to those. And since those are closely tied, I believe, ADUs and short-term rentals, and making sure that, if we choose to let ADUs be short-term rentals or not, how we manage that situation too. So
I think those are really two separate laws. I mean, they should obviously line up.
they can sit separately as, let's say, local laws, but the issue is that there's some interoperability between those or not, again, depending on what we decide to do. But first things first, we got to understand what we are even going to be enabled to do because of the county's rights with respect to what the state just approved. This changed the game in a lot of ways. That's why we kind of sort of stopped in certain aspects of this, because we're like, okay, what's the state doing? And it became a two-phase process. They did something in December, and then they did something in January as well. And now in February, things are starting to move into the county realm. And again, I will pass on what I've learned from what the county, Saratoga County, is going to do with respect to especially short-term rentals to help that. Also, planning development districts, PDDs, we need the potential code to be reviewed or enhanced by our BOA consultant at Labella for potential use of those to encourage development of the BOA map areas, and weighed with other ideas like usage of overlay districts possibly versus PDDs, and seeing what the preferred approach would be, and if there's any need to change anything that's going to be proposed by Chris or us or else how, with respect to how a PDD would assist or not assist the BOA. And so I know Norabelle, you've been talking to her generally about the code.
Yeah, I gave her a heads up that we would be looking for her input on that, and she's, when we're ready, she's happy to look through it.
So the Historic District Commission has brought forward a model historic district code that they brought to the ZAC, and I think it'd be helpful if they brought it to this board and gave a presentation on it. Would that be possible?
They had done outreach to me about this. Apparently not everybody in the HDC was alerted that I actually had shared correspondence with Chairman Cromie, and right now we're just trying to figure out with SHPO, Parks, keep doing that, what our leeway is with certain aspects of that code, where we would retain the possibility of using National Registry approach for credits, which I know John had brought up as a very positive idea overall, but then the maintenance or administration of things after that part of it down the line. And so we're trying to get an understanding ourselves to be able to talk to the board about that as well. Carla has those materials, she's going through them too. And I asked her to reach out to Francine to see if they could determine, because what they've asked us for when I first spoke with her was more or less, hey, do you have a proposed code that we can review? No. Okay, we have your model code, but we haven't marked up in the ways that, different ideas have been presented necessarily. So this is where we've got to kind of, chicken and egg question.
But we do have local people with expertise and a model code, and I think it would behoove us to be educated by them at a board meeting like this. In addition to what you're doing, you know, we can only stand to gain from that kind of education. I found it very enlightening when John presented at the ZAC meeting, and I think everyone would benefit from hearing what he has to say about the model code that is in existence, that he has ready for us to consider if we so choose.
I think it would be great for a larger audience, like at a meeting, in a public meeting, so that it's out there, so the public gets educated on it, because at some point, we're gonna have a public hearing regarding zoning, and it would be good that they were informed on this different approach to the historic district.
John Street Tower monopole update as well. We will be re-engaging our bonding options soon, because the approach is again to, in April is the goal, get the interior of John Street Tower renovated, cleaned up, etc. So taking that offline. Once Smith Controls is done with Colonial Hills Tower, to make sure that that is ready to go for replacement of, being able to supply the system. So we are working with the carriers. We had a meeting on Friday again for updates. The overall goal is to get a 180-foot monopole nearby that water tower, like on the same parcel as that water tower, which would get them above the trees. 4 carriers are interested, so that includes Dish Network / Boost Mobile with respect to that. AT&T is essentially running that process to assist with it, because as we said, we are not used to doing this, and yet they all are in favor of moving on to a permanent structure that is not a water tower, because you can see what this creates. Every time we have to go do something to paint a tower, we got to tell them to come off, whereas if they're not on the tower at all, we don't have to make that request. This is similar to what the town of Ballston did. You can see the tower next to their water tower, or the monopole next to the water tower situation. So again, the goal is April, to the degree we can get the Colonial Hills stuff taken care of here in the next 2 weeks or so. And then the exterior would be done when the monopole would be in place and the carriers were able to get off the tower for the exterior purposes, which would be either in the fall of this year for a second mobilization, which they will pay for any up in cost with respect to that, or early spring next year if it takes a little bit longer because of regulatory issues to get them off. But the most important part of this remains the interior of that tower, which is moving forward over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be re-engaging the bonding options for $999 for the long term, and possibly a potential bank bond anticipation note approach for the near term, because remember, we're paying it in 3 payments to get this done. So I'll keep you posted on that. I'm going to restart the conversation with our bond expert on that.
We just need to keep the local, the neighbors informed of what's happening.
And the town, especially because remember, we fall off the cliff right behind that property into the town outside the village. So they've asked us the same, but they've been very supportive generally, because they know the cell service in the town of Milton for a couple of the carriers especially is problematic heading north. Wiswall Park, I told you I had a lot tonight. Wiswall Park, we had a great meeting with Jeff Heck of JH Property Services and Caitlin Parwana, the Park and Tree Board, Scott Kearns, myself last Thursday, where Jeff actually brought some samples for us to look at too, to have an idea of the type of brick walkway that we might want. And we were also evaluating and looking at the map to understand better what Studio A has proposed in this whole thing with respect to the pathway compared to where it is now, where the center point is, where it could affect trees, etc. Caitlin's going to have to go back to her board to discuss the possible removal of a major tree there because of the placement being problematic to where the center point now would lay, but also discussing adding other trees in some more strategic areas in that situation. But overall, the plan of attack goes like this. Work for this season for Wiswall Park needs to be done before Belmont and Saratoga weekend, so that Wiswall Park is good to go, no problems or anything else. So that we say June 1st would be the absolute deadline for any work to be completed in there. Moving backward, that means that the walkway stuff needs to get done. DPW is going to do the deconstruction of the existing walkway. We're going to get a surveyor in there recommended by Studio A. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to get proposals for the installation of the walk and other street projects in Wiswall Park. We know what our probable lowest bid is, which means that we know that using public works contract procurement or purchasing policy, that we would not be at an RFP if that were to be the lowest bid. So we're going to ride the idea that we'll move forward as normal proposals, the 3-bid proposal approach without the RFP purpose, and hopefully the next meeting we can approve that, whoever is low bid, and then if the person is the current low bid that does it, they say 2 weeks. I think that's the general principle, that we take a couple weeks after we give them the park to take care of and lay the brick down and everything, 2 weeks to get it done. So as long as they start their work by mid-April to late April, park will be in great shape for that purpose and getting some other discrete things done, including getting the pavilion ready as well that we're trying to work on right now with Studio A. Caitlin will have more on that, but it was very productive to at least have a game plan here now moving forward with respect to Wiswall Park and making sure that is done in a way that will not negatively affect the farmers market and the BSVP activities surrounding Belmont and Saratoga weekend. It's almost like a week now, the number of days we're trying to put that on. 3 more things briefly here. Winter Festival, very successful. Want to thank DPW, Town of Ballston, Saratoga County, the Events Task Force, Bob Kavanaugh for staying on the top of the hill for 5 hours.
God bless them.
God, I was up there for about 60 to 90 minutes. I couldn't even tolerate it up there that long. Not that the kids were great and everything. It was just cold, really, really cold. And the hundreds of folks that did come out, and for businesses and residents for your patience during the closures. I'm glad to announce that we took a template from 5 years ago and just redid it because we didn't know what to expect in certain things. We've already looked at that template and as it executed and said, okay, maybe we can do something to keep Front Street open on Friday and Saturday, except for during the event itself, to split the hill up. And that's one thing I think that we're going to be able to do and still use the second hill here at Bass Street, but not do it in a way that you can't pass through on Friday night to go to your favorite restaurant or your favorite shop or whatever. So things like that, already looking to make improvements on.
Construct a snow arch.
I thought of that one. I actually did, but for the purpose of actual driving traffic and parking, that would have not have worked. So,
That's okay.
yeah.
Ice.
That's it. Sometimes you and I are on the same wavelength.
You should go and leave it.
Yeah.
There you go.
But anyway, again, thank you to everybody. That was just a great rebirth of the event, and can't wait to do it again. And then, pick of the day was perfect because we've had 50s since that point, so everything would have melted anyway right after that. So great job. 2 left. Budget meetings, tentative budget. This kind of goes into our treasurer's report too. Ongoing with next week being tentative budget delivery timing. I'm going to be working with LGSS this week with our treasurer as well to ensure we have all bases covered. I'll be working to determine how best to handle the village's funding of the new fire trucks, the replacement of the DPW garage, sidewalk loan pooling, 30 Bath Street management, which is the current court, and more. So we got a lot of challenges we have to address in this budget, just as a brief preview. And we'll be working also with the police union to begin to determine how best to manage budgeting for next year's police pay and benefits, since we're technically in the middle of the end of their contract right now. It expires at the end of this fiscal year, but we may not have it done in time, but at least we'll have protection and budgeting in that process as well. So we can have that conversation as well over the next few weeks. Finally, policies for the new budget that I'm going to be proposing along the way. So I'm not trying to, just spring this on everybody. 2 things specifically that you will see. First, a new policy stating that unspent, quote, building improvement funds budgeted to the fire department, so anything unspent in those lines, will be retained by them via their fire truck reserve account moving forward. Normally, anything unspent in building improvements by the fire department has gone back into our fund balance for just general purposes. To show commitment to our fire department, it's time to basically say to them, well, if you've got building improvements to do, great, use it for that, but if you don't use it for that for some reason, then you will still retain it. So they don't feel forced to do building improvements that are unnecessary. It's gonna go through something beneficial or useful. That's gonna be a policy that I will propose in the budget.
Of course, that's less money for whatever else, but it'd be great to see that in writing and then we can debate.
Okay, thanks. And also, consistent with our need for the water tower renovations, not just John Street Tower, but all 3 towers down the line, we've done the 8% increase in water and sewer rates. Sewer rates, more or less to keep that fund balance growing, because that's been a deficient fund balance for too long. So proposing a 6.5% increase for next year, next budget year, for water and sewer rate increases. That means 3.25% for anticipated inflation, which would be normally budgeted in the A fund, but then another 3.25% for reserve ideas down the line. And so, again, that we're not going to do that forever in terms of just increasing, infinitum. And also the coming online of Milltown should as well help us to avoid the need of doing this in the future. So the sooner they come online, the more we can avoid doing this down the line as well. That's it. Treasurer's report included, besides that we're doing the budget meetings, that it's time to make your utility payments if you didn't do so already, but with a 10% penalty right now, because the due date was February 28th, so make sure you come in and pay those before you continue to get additional penalties on your water and sewer bills. We'll go to liaison reports. Okay, you can stop the AI counting of my time now, and Bernadette, you start.
Okay, just an update about Zach, the zoning code. Chris Patel has been, had his discussions with the zoning and planning board chairs. He is looking to incorporate some of that feedback, and the draft code will be at the village and available to post by March 17th. With that, there will be a Google form so the public can make comment on the code. Just as we're digesting it, we want the public to digest it. Let's see. And just a reminder that their public forum is scheduled for April 3rd at 7 p.m. Just a brief note on BOA tied to this, because the ZAC has been pushed back into April, we're moving the BOA public forum to May 21st at 6:30 at the Cornell Cooperative Extension room, West High Street there. So we have that to look forward to. From the BSBPA, just a note that there's a ribbon cutting on March 14th at 5:15 at Golden Hour Beauty, which is where Abhi just so was. And people are encouraged to visit and celebrate that new business here. Just a reminder also that again their annual meeting will be March 17th at 6 p.m. at Next Door Kitchen. It's always a really good time to see what kind of work they've been doing on behalf of the village and our small businesses. And it's Next Door Kitchen, so the food will be good. Briefly on the fire department, they responded to 46 emergency calls in February. 14 were general alarms and 1 reported structure fire. They also did 11 mutual aid structure fire response requests, 2 of which were working fires. In addition, there's 5 motor vehicle accidents. That seems to be a common occurrence in our area, so everybody just slow down. Can't wait for that study, to be honest. And then some additional reports. Overall, it was more than 500 man hours of emergency response in February. Also, they did 2 department drills, 6 individual company training drills. That was 300 man hours of training completed in that period. Plus, they had some of their folks do the New York State certification training classes. 2 did the rapid intervention crew certification, and then one new member did the basic exterior firefighter operations class. Just a note on ladder truck EL132, the master stream nozzle is still being repaired. The aerial's still in service, so, in the meantime, while that's being repaired, mutual aid will be called should it be, something that we need. That's all I got for me.
I should note that Mary had come to me a few months ago, thereabouts, and said she wanted to see us have a better posture toward emergency preparedness locally in our village. I asked her to be our liaison to help create that process and, give some guidance about what the next steps should be with the folks that we have in the village that are professionals that can assist with that. So Mary asked if she could give an update on that as a liaison for that tonight, and among other things. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very quick with the emergency preparedness. I met with some of the first responders, and they are so much more prepared than I thought imaginable. It was very impressive. They agreed to work on the plan, and they all think that within a year, about a year, we can have a plan completed, and we'll update as the progress goes on and get community involvement and community training as we get to that point. So
Officer Ackley, I know, is very involved with this.
yeah, he's a go-getter. He is so experienced with it, so fantastic.
Thanks for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. And if you haven't seen on Facebook, the Easter egg hunt is going to be held at the Town of Milton Community Center on April 12th from 11 until 1, or has it been extended? 1. There's going to be free food, crafts, and games for the kids.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ben?
The Committee on the Arts has a lot of great events planned. They're still waiting on the Saratoga Arts grants to be announced. They finished drafting their budget request at the last meeting. March 21st, 6 to 9 p.m. is open mic night at Real McCoy, music night on March 21st. And then Random Acts of Poetry is coming up in April. April is Poetry Month. They're going to have haikus all up and down the main streets in downtown. On April 9th at 6 p.m. there's poetry open mic at the Real McCoy. On April 12th, this is all part of that celebration of poetry.
There's a flyer behind you, actually, if you want to offer to people about some of this stuff actually too.
Okay. Yeah, you want to hand it out over there? That's great, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for mentioning that. At 9 a.m. there's a poetry writing workshop at Brookside that's April 12th. On April 26th at 7 p.m. there's poetry reading at Brookside. And on April 27th at 2 p.m. at Brookside again, they're having something called the Cello Experience Sound Bath. So often the Brookside events get filled up, so if you want to go, it's good to sign up early on the Brookside website. The next meeting of the Committee on the Arts is March 19th at 7 p.m. at Brookside Museum. And they continue to look for additional volunteers. You do not have to be an artist. And you can contact them through the Committee on the Arts Facebook page. And then the Park and Tree Board, Caitlin wrote quick update. Frank already talked about the Wiswall piece. In addition, they're talking about tree planting as things warm up. Several problem trees were taken down recently, so it's their priority to get new trees in the ground, and they're hoping to get a good number of trees on streets and parks throughout the village. Also, they want to remind everyone that spring is a great time to plant a tree. If you've been waiting to plant a yard or street tree, please reach out to the board. They have a recommended tree list and also can help advise on other crucial steps to help ensure the health of your new trees. The recommended tree list has been developed using soil samples from the village to narrow down varieties that are more likely to thrive in a village. The planting location can also narrow down what tree might be right for you. As we have seen in Milton Ave, some trees should not be planted next to sidewalks as the tree roots might push up sidewalks. So there are many varieties of trees where this would not be an issue. Their next meeting is Tuesday, March 18th at 7 p.m. at the Cornell Crawford Extension Conference Room. That's it.
So what are you going to talk about with DPW if we haven't been plowing? I mean, what are they up to now?
Well, yeah, they had done some snow removal on narrow streets, cold patching.
Mm-hmm.
Cold patching, it is the season of cold patching, and unfortunately, because of the way the fluctuating weather, they may have to do them multiple times, and then they freeze, and then they bust out again. they've been around the village twice trying to take care of the potholes. They did dig out spots on High Boulevard and coal patch those as well, but obviously that's a temporary fix.
Yep.
They did deal with a major sewer plug, in the siphon under the creek from Saratoga Ave. It took about 8 hours, but they got it unplugged, and, by borrowing the bypass pump from the county sewer department.
We had another, literally Bill Bills in the county sewer had to go from here, while we still had the problems with Route 4, for another one. So Friday was a banner day for the sewer system, having problems.
Yeah, he mentioned that, he wants to work on a plan to potentially eliminate that siphon, if possible.
Yep.
So, numerous repairs to equipment, doing 100-point checks, whatnot. And he called on trucks, our new trucks, but hasn't heard.
2 dump trucks which were ordered in summer 2022 probably will be not seen by summer 2025. We ordered a fire pumper truck in December 2022 that is geared for delivery right now, according to what I got today, July of 2025. So the fire pumper truck will be delivered quicker than 2 dump trucks for general DPW use. That's astounding that the chassis and then the development of the rest of it is taking so long in different ways. But here we sit because we still are trying to close that first USDA loan. Now it's a race to see, will we close the first one first, or will the fire pumper truck bypass it?
You think DPW could get to the Route 50 crosswalk that, over towards Stewart's?
It's not in their hands currently. This is still, for whatever reason, and this lends to the changeover, I think that's occurred at DPW Region 1. Labella, this is between Labella right now and them to finish this off so that we have a plan of attack. Part of the problem though, Ben, is going to be that they will not permit us to do this during daytime because it's going to create issues with road closure scenarios that they're going to force it to the nighttime. And so that's going to either force us to hire somebody else to come in for nighttime regulation of work, or DPW, our crew, is going to have to work overtime just to install. And we can't necessarily mandate that overtime very easily either, because it's not a snow emergency or something like that. So that's going to be an extra wrinkle once we have the ability to do this down the line. So I will check with Labella to see if they've heard anything about finishing this off, because that too has been way too long and not something that we created in the first place, to be honest with you. We got an approval, I believe, to move it slightly compared to what the original boundaries were. But from there, the next steps have been a little bit problematic. All we really need to do is ramp that area, and they're supposed to take care of the rest of it, DOT. But the ramping will force us to do lane closure because there's no parking up there. It's just a, the speedway that it is up there at that part of it. And that's where some of the problems develop with this whole thing. So I will get you more information. I'll follow with Labella on this, but that's where it stands. Last we heard about it. Okay, let's see here. So I try to find my sheet. I think that was it with respect to agenda for the main vote. Yep, no old business, no new business. Public comment on any issue, 3 minutes. If you're on Zoom again, this is the time to raise your hand. If you would like to speak for 3 minutes on any issue, anybody in the room that'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Marilyn, go ahead.
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I just wanted to update the trustees on the zoning advisory committee. We met on Thursday, March 6th, with a majority of the members in attendance. The ZAC resumed the discussion of the zoning issues that our former chairman did not want us to discuss. The ZAC voted to reestablish our public meeting schedule, and by the way, I have a handout. 11 members of the public attended our last meeting. We discussed the existing historic district zoning code and voted unanimously to recommend the proposed model landmark ordinance, which we had been told had been approved by the Historic District Commission. We discussed the Plan Development District draft language and voted unanimously on a change in acreage for the lot minimum. We voted unanimously to recommend questions for public discussion on the PDD, public benefit, use, and other questions. And we will refine those questions at our next meeting, which is March 20th. And we welcome the feedback from the public on this issue. The public rezoning workshop is scheduled for Thursday, April 3rd. I have a flyer on that. And I have questions for the trustees, and I would appreciate your analysis or clarification. First question is, has the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals finished their review and proposed edits to the draft zoning code? Next question, when will the draft zoning code be posted on the village website for public review? Can the ZAC have the purple zoning workshop signs updated for the new April 3rd rezoning workshop? And can the ZAC have the signs ready by March 20th so they can be posted throughout the village as we did last year for the October rezoning workshop? Finally, will the village repost the ZAC meeting schedule on the village website so that the public knows we continue to meet through June? Thank you.
Next. Was that a hand?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jared Aglucci, 24 Chapman Street. As Marilyn just discussed, and despite the former chair's unilateral and unauthorized cancellation of our remaining meetings, and despite the mayor's statement to the Times Union that half of the committee said they don't want to continue meeting, the majority met on Thursday and voted to continue meeting. As Marilyn mentioned, we discussed the historic district, planned development districts, and the upcoming public workshop. In particular, regarding planned development districts, all 6 members not only voted to increase the lot minimum, but also expressed a need to ensure more guardrails are present to prevent undesired development like big box stores, fulfillment warehouses, or high-rise developments that would negatively affect the village's character and fly in the face of the comprehensive plan. 11 members of the public joined the majority on Thursday, and they all voiced their thoughts and concerns as well. All of this was done in spite of the repeated and consistent attempts to prevent our committee from meeting, all undertaken by the mayor and the chair of the Zoning Advisory Committee. In an email to the Zoning Advisory Committee on February 20th, the mayor stated that by seeking a committee position through consensus, we are, quote, risking wasting the village's resources, since we're suggesting Chris Wright's code reflecting those topics in a certain way. In fact, our consultant specifically asked for ZAC input on these topics, writing on September 13th, quote, I've now received some additional thoughts and concerns about the use of PDD. Therefore, I'd like direction on this topic. He similarly noted the absence of concrete feedback as recently as early February. Directions and concrete feedback come from the committee, not individual members. The mayor is twisting this language to argue the consultant does not want to hear our suggestions, when the consultant is simply saying he hasn't heard our suggestions. More to the point, the entire idea that a committee whose purpose is to advise the consultant on writing the code is somehow wasting village resources is absurd. These misrepresentations show that the mayor is worried our suggestions are more focused on preserving the village's character than on encouraging unchecked development. A path determined democratically through committee consensus poses a challenge to what is now happening behind the scenes
10 seconds.
with no transparency. We are seeking to bring these conversations into the open with a clear and transparent record. Trustees, do you agree?
Your time's up, thank you. Next, Liz.
Liz Cormos, 89 Hyde. On August 28, 2023, the Village of Ballston Spa Zoning Advisory Committee Charter was adopted by the Board of Trustees. This charter says the Village of Ballston Spa Zoning Advisory Committee shall be formed to assist the Board of Directors in developing and updating village zoning. With support from one or more zoning experts contracted by the village, ZAC will provide recommendations for updating zoning using the comprehensive plan as guidance. The final product of ZAC will be revised zoning code. The committee will meet at such times as the majority may determine, with such meetings occurring approximately every 2 weeks. ZAC records should be available to the village anytime, including production for the public request. I'd like to know why the mayor and the chair decided unilaterally, without consent of the committee, to disband the committee. The committee has not finished its work, as you can see. The consultant has asked for additional input, and all of a sudden, the mayor is saying, oh, individuals can send their recommendations. This committee was formed by board action, has not completed its work, and needs to complete its work so that it can provide whatever else needs to be added to changes, and can also mark up the historic code. This is what this committee was formed for. I think the mayor and the chair trying to thwart this effort is very dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
John Comey, 132 Bath Street, and I'm going to speak from two hats. The first hat is the Historic District Commission. Fran Stern from the State Office of Historic Preservation is willing to speak to this board, is available at your next meeting, if you wish to have it, on the 24th. I've been in communication with her, and we have to get back to her as to whether or not when she could speak, but I do know she's available at our next meeting. So if you wish to place her on the agenda, we can do that. And then I'm speaking as a member of the former Comprehensive Master Plan Committee, and I wanted to read from page 38 of the Community Goals and Implementation Framework that's part of the master plan. Priority number 1 includes flexibility in zoning. And then what the first paragraph says, and it encapsulates the rest of what it says. The process and product for the updated zoning law should be advanced with community buy-in, allowing flexibility in uses and area requirements, while also requiring the character and charm of the existing buildings and uses to be retained. We will make zoning more generally accepted and allow for enforcement. The major the thing that I am concerned about with the current effort is this suggestion that it be advanced with community buy-in is not happening. Community buy-in means that the public is involved in the whole process. This committee has been meeting for almost a year and a half now. And some of its minutes are on the website. From what I understand, there are no minutes. The secretary was absent, and nobody was appointed to take the minutes, so they're missing. Minutes don't really say much of anything about the nitty-gritty of the zoning law. They, and also you find out in the minutes that a lot of observations were put in on Google Docs that were handled by a member of the committee, but they're not public. Also, we've only had one meeting for the public, and that's where we put stickers on bulletin board. That's it. there has been essentially no community buy-in. And as a result, anything that ends up in this process is going to be questioned as to its legitimacy. And it's almost as if the ZAC has to start again their process and bring people into it who
10 seconds,
should be involved. Okay? Without that, you may have a problem.
Who else? Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
Hold on, I just gotta get it in reverse. I'm sorry, I just gotta find it.
Well, who are you in the meantime?
I am Gina Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane, Ballston Spa. And I'm having a very difficult time finding this. Bear with me, please. Because I'm gonna, here we go.
If you'd like, we could go to Kamran on video.
Oh, please do, that'd be great.
Kamran,
Hi, everyone. I know what I want to say. Kamran Parwana, 86 South Street. Just reiterating some things that some people have already said already. I just want to note that members of the Zoning Advisory Committee met last Thursday, March 6th, for our regularly scheduled meeting. That 6 of the 10 members did attend. We had a really great public turnout. I think it was probably the largest public attendance we've had at a regular ZAC meeting so far. We had a really productive conversation, and I wish that everyone had been there to take part in it. We covered issues including following up on the previous meeting's discussion on the HDC, as well as the PDD provisions that are currently in the draft code. We also agreed unanimously, a majority of the full committee, to continue the current schedule of meetings with the next scheduled meeting on March 20th. We also discussed logistics for the upcoming public forum that's happening on April 3rd that the ZAC is responsible for organizing. And I hope that we have a good turnout there. Thanks, everyone.
and are you ready?
I am ready, thank you. I'd like to read something to the board and the audience.
Again, Gina Morosi.
10 Old Glory
Thank
Lane,
you.
Ballston Spa. This was written by Mr. Keith Lewis on Milton, New York Democrats page.
You might want to be a little louder so the microphone can hear you.
This was written by Mr. Keith Lewis on the Milton, New York Democrats page. I unfortunately believe that the days of encouraging change are over for me. I have been disappointed with our Ballston Spa mayor because he hasn't matured. He's still the same Frank from 6 years ago. I have tried to hold him accountable, hoping that he might learn from his missteps. Naively, I thought if I kept speaking up, he would tire of it, learn how to interact more fairly, and rise to the occasion, but this hasn't happened. I now realize that the only way to deal with this kind of bullying is to use the same playbook he and his sister employ. I am not looking forward to what I'm about to unleash, but I don't believe there is any other option. So fasten your seatbelts, folks. It's about to get bumpy. I don't know about the rest of you, but I consider that a threat. I found it very threatening and very unnerving. What's even more unnerving.
Is Liz laughing right now?
Well, whatever, consider. The 5 people that actually liked that post. Sandra Bondville, coincidentally Liz's husband. Kristen Iacolucci. Joe Seaman, well, that goes with it. No comment there. So we've been threatened.
You have a minute 15 left, and please face the board.
Then in another post, he states that he's learned a lot about the mayor's sister. And he posted that to Kristen Iacolucci and says, we need to talk, and she liked that. Now,
Is this gossip hour?
Excuse me.
no, I'm reading it right from your page.
Okay, this way. Please ignore the crowd.
This has got to stop. Threats? Now we're at threats. Why? Because we put on events? Because you're the mayor? I'm the mayor's sister. I am not a political person. I am not in politics. I am not in office. The threshold is much lower for harassing me than it is, say, the mayor. And I'm getting sick and tired of it. The police have been notified, and I will continue to notify them. And not only will I notify them, I will put every single threat on blast so that the rest of the community sees what we have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm sick and tired of it. People need to grow up and work for the community instead of their ego and their self-interest or their party. And just in finishing, this was
10
left
seconds.
up, it's still up, but I got banned from that page because Kristen posted another false comment and I wrote the words wrong again as usual. I'm now banned from that page, but threats can stay up there.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Mike Iacolucci, 3 Encore Drive. For the last 3+ years, I've been cautioning all of us to try to avoid governing through social media. My words clearly have meant nothing to most people, and I'm sorry about that. I don't follow social media. I don't believe that is the forum for any sort of productive discussion of policy or action steps to take to improve the community. There have been various people who have posted things that have been brought to my attention that I would consider threatening. So various people might consider various things that they see posted online as a threat. Ideally, people would not involve themselves in that. It has happened, it is happening, I'm sorry that's the case. With these social media posts, I would simply ask people, whoever chooses to post, to stick to, especially if it's on the mayor's Facebook page, which I infer, meaning it's got something to do with village business. Anyone who posts there, the post should be policy oriented, not attacking an individual. You can question a person, you can disagree with a person, but ideally, we as a village of friends should be doing that in a friendly manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Christy DeMoss, 17 East High Street. You all probably don't know me because I don't come to every one of these meetings. I have 3 children, so actually I walk to Malta Ave every day, pick her up, drop her off, and I appreciate the idea of cameras and reducing speed limits. I think that's great. I live on East High Street, so I have a historic house. I haven't lived here very long, so I'm trying to improve it. And I'm on the edge of a residential zone, so zoning is interesting to me. It's relevant to me. I attended the public meeting. I don't have time to attend every single meeting. And so so basically I'm confused. I don't know why the ZAC was stopped. I'm curious to hear what their feedback is on the contentious things. I mean, because I said, I have a historic house. I've met with the historic district. I want improvements to my house. That would be great. And if I can get tax credits for that, even better. So as just a member of the general public, I am confused by what's going on. I dislike the way information is transmitted through Facebook. I really appreciate your comments because I really don't like it. I have no side in any of this other than to be kind of upset by trying to get information. Actually, I spent this past week watching a lot of board meetings and watching the last ZAC meeting, and it's painful to listen to. And I just wish that there would be better communication, more official communication, and understanding what's going on, because I would like public feedback in what's going on in the zoning and things like that. I think that's very valuable. And I think that You know, I'm not the only person who's just a member of the public with kids out there and jobs and are busy and don't have time to get into all the drama and all the things, and I just want to know what's going on. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. And any more hands? I don't see. Okay. We got here. Other business, including but not limited to board response, public comment.
Just in case it wasn't, you guys will jot this down, a reminder, the draft code will be available March 17th. There will be a Google form. Please, provide comment. And April 3rd, as many people have decided, is the public participation meeting. And that's again, April 3rd, 7 o'clock at the Cornell Cooperative.
I have some comments I'd like to share. And it's a statement that I will submit in a day or two, and I expect it to be attached to the minutes. Thanks for doing that. I want to commend the majority of Zoning Advisory Committee or ZAC members for insisting that the committee continue to meet until its goal has been obtained according to the charter. To paraphrase Mark Twain, news of Zach's death has been greatly exaggerated. I want to reiterate tonight that Matt Erkeline, the chair of the Zoning Advisory Committee, had absolutely no authority to unilaterally disband the ZAC as he has claimed to have done. He has completely undermined the ability of the ZAC to fulfill its mission of delivering a draft zoning code to the village board. If he acted alone, it would reflect a supreme arrogance and incompetence. But I believe it is most likely that he acted with the advice, guidance, and blessing of Mayor Rossi, who immediately embraced Matt Erkeline's undemocratic, unethical violation of the ZAC charter and mission. Frank, you should step forward and acknowledge your role in this so that the public doesn't blame Matt exclusively for this complete train wreck. As a result of Matt's actions and Frank's strong support, the drafting of the zoning is being done without public transparency and input and by a small number of insiders. This follows Matt's unilateral decision, also with Frank's support, of hiding all ZAC documentation. The hiding of documentation from the public is also in clear violation of the ZAC charter and the ethics law. The ethics law states, section 27-5, treatment of others by officers, employees, and appointees. Letter B, no officer, employee, or appointee shall take any action or through inaction or withholding of information impede the ability of other officers, employees, and appointees to properly and fully perform their duties, unquote. By unilaterally disbanding the ZAC, Matt has clearly violated this ethics code, as well as board policy regarding the ZAC. Matt Erkeline needs to formally resign from the ZAC immediately and cease all involvement in drafting of the zoning and organizing of the April 3rd public forum. Frank and Matt's collusion to disband the ZAC should be noted by all who value open, democratic government. This is not how village government should be run. It is a clear sign of the secrecy with which Frank intends to write the zoning moving forward and the lack of respect that Frank has for public input. And going with that, that's the end of my statement. For April 3rd, it is completely unclear to members of the ZAC how the April 3rd forum is going to be organized, because they are responsible for organizing it, and that has not been, they have not been involved in that, and they need to be. The contract with Fisher states, whereas the village is looking to retain a qualified firm to work in collaboration with the village's zoning advisory committee to review and revise the current village code relating to zoning. So basically, if Chris's job isn't done, then the ZAC's job isn't done. As long as he is working, the ZAC needs to continue. And they need to be involved with the organizing of the April 3rd public forum, and they need to be enabled to meet officially, formally, on the dates that they have decided to meet. In the charter, it says that a majority can schedule meetings, and that is what they have done. It needs to go on the village calendar according to the charter. They are following the charter. We need to support them in following the charter and their mission. That's it for now.
Since we're on a roll with Zach. I only have a couple of comments. I mean, I'm not gonna speculate what Matt's motives were. It's obvious that he acted on his own accord, and didn't follow, basic policy of committees and have a vote, or at least meet and discuss about, whether or not they were gonna continue on as the ZAC and further continue talking about different subjects. It's obvious to me there's no cost in the ZAC meeting and providing recommendations to the consultant. Actually, there will be a reduction in cost because now there is a unified recommendation. The idea of having each individual ZAC committee member provide their own version of what they think sounds vastly more confusing than having a committee come up with a unified recommendation and providing that to the consultant. You're just creating more work for the consultant to try to sift through, unless you're gonna ignore all those recommendations and do something else. But that would basically be in violation of the public trust, because the comprehensive plan was developed, and that plan had more public input than any other document created for the village in its history. So it represents the public will. What I don't understand is why we aren't allowing the committee to use that document and continue to give recommendations on subjects that are going to be covered in the zoning. I mean, that is literally their purpose. And it costs nothing for them to meet. So I would recommend we reinstate all the meetings on the website so the public's aware. I mean, even without that, the public, 11 people came to your last meeting. Obviously, the public's interested in what the ZAC has to say. So why are we trying to censure the ZAC by essentially disbanding it? It just flies in the face of public service and what the public wants.
I mean, I'd like to hear from board members. I think we owe it to the ZAC to show them a strong voice of support for what they're doing and to encourage them to continue. Mary, is there any reason they should not just continue with how they've been working?
Honestly, then, it seems like there's just so much conflict with them, and Frank at the last meeting tried to open a path for communication, what their concerns were, and Marilyn said that that wouldn't work. Does only meeting in public, can they only communicate their concerns in public?
Last meeting before Frank cut me off, I suggested that both happen, and both have been happening. Why not, do you think they could meet and submit comments? They could do both.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like nothing was getting done in their public meetings, and there was no, even some of the call-ins last week, so there wasn't a consensus. And if you can't talk, if it gets too heated in public, write down your concerns. You know, it's a good starting point to see what everybody's concerns, if they don't feel comfortable disclosing them in a public setting, if they can disclose them, just writing them down, and it'll be a beginning.
Certainly I agree with you. If individuals who were appointed ZAC committee members and they've decided they don't want to fulfill their obligation, but they still want to provide comment, they certainly can, but there's nothing wrong with, and if you heard basically the testimonial from the last meeting, it was a majority and they were unanimous. So it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of infighting in that regard.
Yeah,
Was that even a quorum is my question.
No, Ben, could you read the last paragraph of the charter?
I don't have the charter right in
Well, I keep quoting from it, so I would assume you would have it open.
I probably have it somewhere. Yeah, the charter requires a quorum. Well, the people.
Excuse me, my turn. If you're not.
You just asked me a question, Frank,
You're
and
not
I'm
answering the
responding to
question,
you.
So I'm going to read it now.
Okay, go ahead.
The ZAC will conduct its meetings with notice of meetings, and public attendance is welcome. The ZAC can meet without a quorum, but cannot vote on matters without a quorum. Quorum shall be defined as 7 members of the 11-member committee. ZAC members shall have the opinion or option to participate in ZAC meetings remotely. So
it's now 10 because one
no,
resigned.
it's still 11-member committee. It's just one absentee. It doesn't change the quorum.
No, you
Right,
need to replace that person.
Just to be clear, there was no there.
I don't dispute that,
Folks,
but it's the
I
mayor should have immediately reappointed somebody, but he failed to do his job.
no, actually,
No resolution.
Well,
I don't have one.
No.
So, anyway, yes, it is a waste of resources upcoming if we're not careful about it, because we are at 88% when you include the public workshop. I am pretty clear that Chris is gonna be seeking additional budget. There's just no way 12% is going to cover remainder draft and our needs as the board. But I do want to address a couple of the things that were brought up tonight, because this is board response to public comment, so maybe we should direct it to public comment instead of quizzing each other like this is Jeopardy or something.
well, the
Excuse
public asked us some questions.
To your point, one of the biggest things for me is the public portion of this, that we reach a point where we need to get to the public portion of this. And that means, yes, getting a code version out to everybody, getting that public workshop, then there's a public hearing coming up with respect to us that will be a pretty lengthy public hearing. It'll remain open for a while. This is that portion of time when, after a year and a half nearly of ZAC, it is time to begin to transition to the public-facing portion of this directly and us. With respect to the question of historic districts especially, kicking and screaming to a certain degree, I have to basically get an awareness of the chair of the HDC to understand that first, the HDC, to just treat one small piece of the village as historic was a fiction. He owns a property that's right down this hill that's as historic as anything, after Doubleday's birthplace. It's not treated the same way as a property in the HDC. I'm actually the person that was saying over and over again, and Bernadette can, I think, vouch for this, this entire village is a historic district. And it actually finally motivated a discussion. Finally, the chair admitted to this body that indeed the existing code is obsolete, that we need to make some changes. Now, we could disagree about what portions of the model code, but I agree with you about if we can do a national registry tax credits for anything that's going to be deemed historic, terrific. I just want to make sure that we are also being mindful that we've had some really big breakdowns of process along the way with respect to how, when you want to make an alteration to your home, the management of that went. And we have to be very cognizant that that has been a problem along the way, that we need to fix that process. And so that's the things that, as I was talking about, you know, what we said to Francine, to see where the leeways are or aren't, so that once we know how we can maintain that national registry and the credits, where we go from there with that leeway. That's what we're trying to ascertain. Instead of being toxic about it at all times, we're actually trying to get down to the basics here to say, you're exactly right. And when we can get enough information to disseminate at the board level, great. Because what's happening is we're getting one point of view at all times, it feels like, and literally about half of the members of the HDC, not at the HDC, but the ZAC, excuse me, said, we're done because the ZAC consultant isn't even really paying attention to us anymore anyway, because he feels he has enough to move on.
That's not
excuse me.
true.
Here's a member right here that felt
Yes, it
that
is.
same way.
True. I
Okay.
spoke with him
Who
Thursday.
is still engaged with the consultant while the committee is not.
Right,
I spoke to him Thursday.
yeah, private.
Yes.
So nonetheless,
Nonetheless.
you're by all means corrected some of the things you did bring up tonight. And I just want to
Who's not interrupting?
All right, go ahead, sorry.
Did you want to say, I didn't want to.
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to add to that, to the historic district. Would the board support the presentation next meeting by the representative, what's her name,
We're
Jody?
not there yet.
We aren't there yet.
Francis' term.
Francis?
Sounds like there's more discussion with Carla
Yeah.
and Chip up, not Chip up.
The biggest thing that I remember from last week is Steve Springer, who was his designee, calling me, not even knowing about the email I sent to the chair of the HDC, which I basically outlined, here's what we did, thank you for making that contact link. Here's what we learned in that contact. Here's where we're going with it to get that best information possible for everybody. Because unfortunately, what happened here is we're getting one side of the coin and not understanding the full panoply of options with respect to the HDC model code.
So you don't want to hear from Francis?
No, we are talking to Francis, but we're talking about where's the leeway first so that we even understand from a legal side here, Carla, and practically, and she's going to convey to us as a board what that means ultimately. We've got to get there first, but what I'm concerned about is why was that information even withheld from the HDC, that I had to talk to Steve Springer, who's a great guy, great member of their HDC panel, who was taken by surprise when I said, no, Steve, I already addressed this issue, John, and had no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I would like to hear from Francis, and I don't feel any need to wait. You know, it's just more information. So when you and Carla are done talking with each other and share what you're doing with the rest of us, we will just have more information on that. I don't know what that look was for. That's how you normally operate. You and Frank talk, and then you share it with us. So I don't see any reason to wait if she's available in a month.
I'm sure she could probably be available in another day if we ask. So I artificially
All right,
pushing
so I'm
that.
sorry you're not open to that. The other thing I'd just like to respond to, you create the mess with the ZAC, you and Matt, by canceling it. And then you say, look, it's a mess, nobody wants to
Ben,
meet.
you participated in a FOIL request.
If you
Excuse me.
didn't want to make a
FOIL
mess,
request.
everyone would continue to be meeting if you hadn't interfered.
You participated in a FOIL request.
I did not participate in a FOIL request. What are you
Really?
talking about? What are you talking about,
Really?
Frank? Explain what you're talking about, Frank.
You didn't?
Explain what you're talking about.
The FOIL request that brought out any documents between Matt and me, Matt and Rory. Were you in there, Anna? I think you got excluded somehow. Congratulations, etc. And guess what? That was a pretty easy document document production ultimately on that FOIL, because there wasn't much of anything in that.
Yeah, you, Rory, and Matt meet at Henry's after the meetings and you talk. So let's not pretend you haven't been involved in helping Matt. So you're going to throw Matt under the bus. You're going to say Matt's dissolution of the ZAC was unilateral without any participation from you. He just did it on his own.
Ben,
Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Ben, seeing that I was in Florida when all this was really coming to a
Oh,
boil.
Florida, can't talk to Florida.
I know, but some
Frank.
people actually take their responsibilities when they travel.
All right,
for
so
work
Matt did this
purposes.
all by himself. He did it all by himself. The chair did it all by, he violated the charter, the village ethics.
I think it's my
code
understanding.
all by
First
himself.
off, Carla's
That's what you're
reminding,
saying?
Carla's reminding us there's a young lady back there who's a young girl, so let's keep it calm. But it is my understanding that,
Unbelievable.
excuse me?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It is my understanding the majority of the other board members on ZAC have felt the process is no longer
But
amenable.
that's
So
clearly wrong, because it's not the majority.
there was not a quorum. Tell me how that's the majority.
If Matt,
Quorum and majority are two separate things.
But I'm sorry.
If Matt-
But there's no, hold on, you're right. But there's no quorum, so there's really no ability for that group. They will not care if you meet individually, like, it's your own free time.
if
So-
Matt
Can I
was,
please finish what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Can I please finish what I'm saying?
Go
I
ahead.
patiently listen to your
all right,
nonsense.
sorry, go ahead.
So, I think, do whatever the heck you want with your personal time, but get comments to, I had said this in email, get your comments to Chris. I think at this point, we got 17th scheduled, we have a public meeting scheduled, and it's, everybody's gonna have an opportunity to have comment on it, so.
And we're gonna have some deadlines set finally, because we can't do this
It's
forever.
over a year.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
The connection with Chris has been 9 months. So if Matt bothered to attend.
He was hired in January
Yes,
2024.
and he didn't, and Matt delayed his engagement, we went over this last meeting, until April.
Yeah, and you were dead
Until
wrong,
April.
because Chris's engagement began in January
No,
2024.
he was told not to engage with the ZAC until April. So
that means he was doing nothing?
So just to speak to what Bernadette said, if Matt, who is supposed to be the chair of the ZACC, I keep saying ZAC,
No, you're right.
bothered to attend his own meeting, they'd have a quorum, they'd have 7 people. Matt needs to resign, he is just, he's
Arguably,
absent.
anybody
If
could
he
choose
joined-
to go and
if
give
he
you a
attended-
quorum, but if no longer those board
Unbelievable.
members agree, they're just gonna sit there and just give your comments in writing.
Well,
I
the
don't
other
understand. I don't understand what the complaint is here, because again, the public is gonna have opportunity to make input.
Nobody asked the ZAC, who has been working tirelessly
Yes, we
for
have.
years.
We did 2
No,
weeks ago.
they were never asked. At a public meeting, they never voted, they never discussed it, it was just done, behind their backs, literally. And Mary, just to your point, you're saying, oh, the meetings weren't ideally efficient or whatever, and you can blame Matt for a lot of that, but you guarantee failure if they don't meet. At least if they're meeting. They actually had 2 excellent meetings without Matt, it's not a coincidence, I think, and they were very productive, and they should continue in that vein.
That's my first red flag when you say that, Ben. Can I get a motion
Well,
to
I
vouchers
would
be
like-
audited in the meeting?
There's 2 immutable
8:32
facts
PM.
that a
Trustee
quorum
Fandesa.
and a
Trustee
majority are
Price
2
Bush, all
separate
in favor?
things. And
Aye.
a majority met,
Opposed?
and
Motion
12
carries.
opinions or 10
We'll see you on March
opinions
24th.
aren't-
No
are more
questions were answered,
expensive.
were they? No
Yeah.
questions. That's how he's operating. Won't answer your questions.
Yes.
Bidding or proposing have a contract.
Mary is back.
Bidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
I've done that before.
You blame the leaders for it.
Fire department is one of the-
Thank you for getting involved now.
That is
Very
our
good.
resolution.
And
Just so you should do it there.
you're familiar
That we
with
created
job
the capital reserve
Well, we
fund.
create policies
There's been,
for the specific
can
money.
But you
coordinate
need
with
to have a
them.
resolution.